Very good. So you're trying to find life in it? Yeah. No problem. And the first and last one? Okay, perfect. All right, so when you're ready to go, right up here on this one. So right now I'm going to have this up, and all you need to do is work on this.
Morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to Emerald City Rotary. I'm the president, Mark Menninger, and happy to kick off another meeting on another Tuesday morning. And we'll get started with our thought for the day by Mr. Joel Peterson.
Hey, Joel.
Thank you, sir. Morning. All right. A few little stories this morning, some things to think about. These are little vignettes, if you will, very, very brief. Once, all the villagers in this village decided to pray for rain. On the day of the prayer, all the people gathered, but only one boy came with an umbrella. That is faith. When you throw babies in the air, they laugh because they know you will catch them. That is trust. Every night when we go to bed without any assurance of being alive the next morning, we still set our alarms to wake up. That is hope. We plan big things for tomorrow in spite of zero knowledge of the future. That is confidence. We see the world suffering, but still we get married and have children. That is love. And an old man's shirt is written with a single sentence. It says, I am not 80 years old. I am sweet 16 with 64 years of experience. That is attitude. So have a happy day and live your life like these 6 stories. And remember, good friends are the rare jewels of life, difficult to find and impossible to replace. So join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And you get me again for the song. So we have a few visitors. Not sure if you've been to our club before, but we sing every Tuesday morning. Usually not very well, but we do sing every Tuesday morning. So join us on the back of your programs, a song you'll remember from the 60s by Sam Cooke, Wonderful World. So join me. 1 second. And we sing along to make it easy. Don't know much about history. Don't know much biology. Don't know much about a science book. Don't know much about the French I took. But I do know that I love you. And I know that if you love me too, what a wonderful world this would be. Don't know much about geography. Don't know much of trigonometry. Don't know much about algebra. Don't know what a slide rule is for. But I do know what it one is too. And if this one could be with you, what a wonderful world this would be. Now I don't claim to be an A student, but I'm trying to be. Or maybe by being an A student, baby, I can win your love for me. Don't know much about history. Don't know much about biology. Don't know much about science book.
Don't know much about the French I took, but I do know that I love you. And I know that if you love me too, what a wonderful world this would be. History, biography, science book, French I took, but I do know that I love you. And I know that if you love me too, what a wonderful world this would be.
Nicely done.
Nice.
Thank you, Joel. Perfect song for this morning. And I wanted to recognize David, who put together this new slideshow for us. This is really cool. I think it does a great job of capturing what our club is all about. And at this time, I would like to call up our Sergeant at Arms. And if you notice on the slides, he's got a birthday coming up. So, Mr. Birthday Boy, Tom Burley.
Thank you, Arthur. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good to be with you today. We have a short program and a regular program today, so Sergeant Arms will be somewhat concise. I did bring one thing I hope is value add. We will see. You can let me know and decide whether we're going to do it to follow. But most important is to introduce our guests of honor. And Mark, is that going to be your duty today?
Yes, so we have Hal Beals, who's going to be talking about youth exchange at during our short program, and then we have Angela Jones, who's going to be our main program speaker.
Hal and Angela, welcome. Good to have both of you here. And Hal, you must be with the Rotary Club, which is your club.
University Sunrise Breakfast Club meets Thursday mornings at Ivor's Salmon House.
Salmon House.
And it's a delight to be here. I haven't been in this hotel in a long time, since I was assistant district governor. I could hardly recognize the neighborhood as I came down Taylor Way. My goodness gracious.
Yeah, changed the life.
It's unbelievable. This hotel's got to be worth $1 billion. I'm sure that Howard is counting his coins in the back row.
Al, good to have you
Thank
here.
you very much.
Thanks for your commitment to Rotary. Other guests I'm looking, I see for her second meeting as a full-fledged member of this club, Vera. Vera, give away. And for you veterans of the club, if you haven't introduced yourself to Vera, please do. And help her feel welcome. You're delighted to have her. Okay, so we're going to do quick happy bucks and then a little value add thing, I hope. So any happy bucks today? Howard, if you would, please.
I have $1 to thank Carol, yes, for arranging for our dictionary distribution, which is 2 Tuesdays from now, 29th at 9:30, right after this meeting. And we'll have books ready, and there's 60 students plus teachers, and then it's up to you if you want to get the rest of the book to the library. Future students come in here, whatever, but we'll have book plates in there. And very excited to be there.
And to get those boxes out of your office.
To get the boxes out of my office.
Is there somebody who can give me a ride to here?
Oh, I'm sure.
Don't leave me here.
Don't leave me here.
Thanks. Any other happy bucks? Anybody? Carol, if you would, please.
Okay, one for Hal, because he was assistant district governor when I was president at the West Seattle Club.
Hey,
Good
And
to
he also
see you.
comes from the town that's right next to where I'm from in New York.
Right.
I'm from White Plains, that's right next door. And on Thursday, I'm leaving for Detroit to run the Detroit International Half Marathon, which crosses the border, so half the race is in Canada, and we come back here, and we have to run with our passport.
So if you're on your first happy buck in honor of Hal, I assume he treated you reasonably well.
Oh, he
Oh, yeah,
did.
he's great.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
More than reasonable.
Good.
Thank
I'll be
you.
the last happy buck. This Friday is my 64th birthday, so I've already contributed $64 to the club. Howard took the card this morning. Honored to be part of this club, and that is a tradition. Who started that? That was you, Jerry. Wasn't it? Were you the one that started that? Jerry started that. So this is a fabulous idea. Thank you, Jerry. You got me by a couple years in this, so thank you for your generosity in starting that great trend. I encourage you, all of you, to do the same in celebration of your birthday. So, a little value add. So I reached out to a few members and I asked them to give their favorite book recommendation. And I got a good response. I asked,
Great.
Actually I asked 5 people. I've got 4 of those with me. One of those I'll save till next week. I'll reach out to a couple others of you. So favorite book recommendation. So I have these here. Oh, I got a, let's see if this will work. So from the Overstory. So this is from Debbie Seaman. And I asked Debbie Seaman about this. I said, tell me why. And she said, did you know there is a 25% relative connection between a tree and a human being? A genetic similarity between a tree and a human being. I said, no, I didn't. But she said, well, it's in this book, fascinating to read, and it was, it's a winner of the National Book Award. So Overstory, The Overstory by Richard Powers, and I looked this up. All 4 of these books got 4.5-star ratings on Amazon. This book is 512 pages long. So there's Overstory, recommended by Debbie Seaman. Next book, The Kite Runner. This, somebody who read this, who said I read this. Oh, look at this. Well, this is Howard Cohen's recommendation. I know that you read it. Matt's read it. You liked it. Double thumbs up.
Oh, yeah.
He gets a very
5
good.
stars.
5 stars. Okay. Right.
So
So
I have a funny story.
please go ahead, if you would.
So a friend of mine is a writer of books, and we were at a party many years ago. There was an editor of this book there, and she remembers meeting Colin Saini, and he presented the book to her, the manuscript. She's like, yeah. She was sorry about that one.
Yeah.
Not only turned into be a great book, it also was a movie.
It's a good movie.
Yeah.
It's a good movie.
The Kite Runner. So there you go, Howard. Thank you for that recommendation. Kite Runner. 4.5 stars again. 400 pages for Kite Runner. Next one, I apologize for the low quality resolution. Factfulness. So, and the little subtitle says 10 reasons we're wrong about the world and why things are better than we think, or better than you think, by Hans Rosling. Jay Leon read this because it was Bill Gates' top recommendation. You know, Bill, and you read it too, and Bill Gates read it. So Jay told me about it, so I read it as well. It is absolutely fascinating. You got to get through the first couple pages, the first couple chapters, because the guy really, really likes himself, and he lets you know why you should like him as well. But once you get past that, it is fascinating. This is a medical doctor from Sweden. He's a Swedish medical doctor, and he was one of the first responders to the Ebola crisis. And he uses that as a reference of why we think so wrongly about crises like that. So Factfulness, highly recommended. Factfulness.
Great TED Talks if you don't want to read the book.
Yeah. Yeah, 352 pages. Unfortunately, Hans died, I think it was last year, year before. But fascinating book. Last one, this is my recommendation, the tome, 818 pages. And, you know, and I'm a little geeky about history and stuff, but Ron Chernow writes extremely, extremely well. And this is based on a whole bunch of Hamilton's wife's. She kept many of his letters, records, documents. As you may know, Hamilton was a prolific writer, so she kept a lot of that and was able to tell stories about him. So I highly recommend this to you. It's not only good for understanding history, but it's a fabulous read on overcoming. This guy had to overcome a ton to be successful, and very much to our benefit here in this country. So that's my recommendation to you. There you go.
Tom, I have a little footnote to that, if you don't
Please
mind.
help.
Interesting that it's 858 pages, because that's how much it costs for a ticket to get into Hamilton.
Yeah.
So if you can't read the book, see the play.
Yeah. My wife and I saw the original cast, with the exception of Lin-Manuel.
Isn't that something?
Lin-Manuel Miranda as
Yeah.
Extraordinary in New York, but they came
Extraordinary.
here and they did a good job here as well. Anyway, there you go. I'll do the same. I'll reach out to a couple of you and we'll have books for next week. Thank you, Mark. Back to you.
All right.
That is really makes the Rotary Club to do that.
All right, well, thank you very much, Tom. Excellent job. So at this time, I would like to introduce Hal Beals.
Okay.
He's with University Sunrise. And one of the reasons why I'm excited to have Hal talk to us is because we did set one of our goals to be more involved with youth this year, and youth exchange is a great way to do that. I wanted to learn more about it. And Hal is the youth exchange coordinator? Chairman for the district.
Rotary likes that title, chairman.
Chairman for the district.
Chairman of
And so
District 5030 Youth Exchange, and
he's the knowledgeable person on this topic.
I guess I know.
So he'll tell us a little bit about youth exchange.
So this is a little handout. I don't have any audio visual because I think it's easy enough to kind of explain it and then to open it up for questions. So Rotary Youth Exchange is the longest running program of Rotary. Started in 1928, and it's gone continuously since that time. Many Rotary districts around the world participate in it, and 5030 over the years has been a large participant. There are two programs. The oldest one, and probably the one that you may have heard of, is the full school year program, in which a young person, probably a junior in high school, comes here to replace a student that you have sent to his or her home club, his or her country. So this is a two-way exchange. Goes on simultaneously. This club would sponsor a young person and would send them to hopefully the country of his or her choice. And in return, this club would host a student from that home country, perhaps in the same town, but not always. That's the long program. That takes quite a commitment from a club to be able to manage financial commitment and some training and oversight goes to hosting students. The other program, the one that Flyer mentioned specifically, because Mark asked specifically about it, is the short program, which the name says it is short. It is basically a 2-month exchange organized basically between two families. The club has no involvement from a financial standpoint, but some involvement from an oversight standpoint, which I'll get into. The short program basically is you have a young person, a junior in high school, who wants to do this, and she sent the application, and we match them up with another young person from hopefully the country that she wants to go to, and they take turns in each other's homes. So the first month, your student would fly to Luxembourg or India or Japan or wherever it happens to be, spend a month with that family, and then that student in Japan would fly back with your back here to Seattle to spend a month with his or her family, doing family type activities. So 2 programs. The purpose of Rotary Youth Exchange goes back, as I said, to 1928. It is now basically supervised, or part of, I should say, the United States State Department's diplomatic campaign of people-to-people campaign. People-to-people diplomacy, well, diplomacy is all about people-to-people, but when you have average, ordinary citizens, American kids going overseas and foreign kids coming here, it is a powerful lesson for everybody. Certainly the kids involved who are in it, indeed their families. And I can tell you from personal experience of doing this for a while, that the friendships that are made on Rotary Youth Exchange, both at the kid level and at the parent level, last lifetimes. And we hear stories all the time. I've heard stories from people I don't even know. I'm on a Rotary project, meeting up the Burt Gilman Trail. People have walked up to me and asked, is this a Rotary Club project? And I say, yes. And they say, 1982, I was a Rotary Youth Exchange student from Minot, Minnesota, and I went to Japan, and I stayed in touch with that host family, and I went to my host sister's wedding, and she went to my wedding, and my parents met her parents. A year ago, we had a very bright young woman from France, from Lyon, a city that we've done a lot of exchange with, not Paris, but and she came here with French ideas about this country, and she was not ashamed in public to share those ideas. But after 6 months of being in Shorewood High School and living in Shoreline and being with American kids and American family and whatnot, her story was very. And in this time, well, in every time, but certainly in this time, Rotary Youth Exchange can be a powerful force for good in the world, not just for the whole world, but for the kids and families that are involved in it. It truly is. Everybody says this is a life-changing experience. I can tell you, if you are in a foreign country for a year, going to school in Germany, you will never forget. And it will stay with you. Those relationships will stay with you. Maybe the language will stay with you. And it opens up tremendous opportunities. Today, getting into when I tried to get into a state university, my state university was in Kentucky, because I wasn't smart enough to get into a state university in New England, New York State. I wound up in Kentucky, and everybody who applied from a high school in Kentucky was accepted. That was probably true here once upon a time at the U, right? If you graduated from Roosevelt High School with what we used to call a gentleman C average, excuse me, ladies, gentleman C, you got in, right? You could get into law school with a C average back in those days. Today, every high school senior has a 4-point, or damn near it, and they've got college board scores that are in the 1700s. What separates one kid from another during the admissions process? If you can talk to that college admissions officer in pretty good German, or pretty good Italian, or pretty good Portuguese, you got a leg up. And you've worked very hard to achieve that ability, that fluency. And you come to the University of Washington admissions office a step ahead of the other 4-pointers who had internships at the Supreme Court. And those kinds of things. This is your time. So I come to you and ask this club to seriously consider getting involved with Youth Exchange. I'll be your main contact to help you through it. It's going to take at least 2 committed Rotarians to be involved in this. The commitment is not heavy, but there is a State Department test that has to be taken and passed, because the State Department is very concerned, and rightly so, about youth safety. There are other commercial exchange programs where people pay $30,000 or so to do an exchange, and they wind up at host families that haven't been vetted. And there are terrible stories of what happens to some young people that wind up here on exchange programs. Rotary is completely different. There's never been any scandals that I'm aware of about Rotary Exchange, public safety of children, trafficking issues. None of that has happened. So if these programs are monitored by the State Department, we have to report to the State Department if there's ever any incidences, because they're trying to keep bad stuff out of the papers that could affect diplomatic relations. I'm sure we still have some diplomatic relations in this country, but we want to preserve the ones that we have. So think about it. If you're involved with the summer program, the cost of the club is basically zero. The parents pay for the airfares and all of that, and do the hosting. The club would have to have appoint somebody called the Youth Exchange Officer, and then a Youth Exchange Council. These are part of the safety vehicles, we're kind of monitoring students while they're here to be sure that their exchange is good and safe and so on. So that's it. My business card is on the back of the flyer. I'd be happy to assist this club in experiencing Rotary Youth Exchange. Warren.
Can I do a quick follow-up on that? I was a member of the Burien White Center Rotary Club some years ago, and we decided we wanted to get involved in this program. And they told us you have to have 3 host families lined up, ready to go before we say, okay, you're part of the program.
Right.
So we had 2.
Yeah.
I was teaching a course in just one evening class in goal setting, and totally not Rotary related at all. But I've had in the back of my mind, I'm a member of the Burien White Center Club, and we've only got two families ready. We need another family. So I told them something about the youth exchange program, and they said, wow. One of the people there said, we would like to be a host family. And he turned and looked at his wife, who was sitting at the table next to him, and she nodded her head.
There you go.
It was a great exchange.
Great experience indeed. Yeah, so the host family situation is different, Warren, from summer program. It's the family to family exchange. You know, it only lasts a month. There's no school. There's no visa involved.
Yeah, so my son did this. He was now 4 years old. He did it when he was to Madrid, and it was the short program.
Short program,
yeah. And absolutely still friends with family, and they his buddy and his friends from Madrid come over. We're just over here for the summer or part of the summer and vice versa. So yeah, definitely lifelong.
It's a great. Thanks for your attention. Thank you,
All
Mark.
right, thank you. So does this sound like something we want to support as a club, Youth Exchange?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the key thing is if you're doing the short program, the child actually has to be one of the family. They have to be in the family.
Of Rotary?
Well, for the short program, you find at least my understanding is a family here within this club has to no.
Not at all. Not at all. No. Rotary families do not have to be involved in this at all. The program is open to Rotarians, of course. Your own children can certainly and grandchildren can certainly do this, but it is not a requirement.
But the key is that in that situation, each child stays at the other child's home with that family for that 30 days.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
The full program, then they can be wherever.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. All right. Well, thank you, Hal.
Thank you, Mark.
We will be in touch.
Pleasure.
Because
Thank
I
you,
think
Joel.
This is something that we certainly want to support as a club. A couple of quick announcements before I introduce our main program speaker. So World Polio Day is next week. So we've got some big events lined up for that. We have our very first pub crawl. Any updates on that?
So we're going to start, it's right around the corner on Roy Street.
Right.
It's McMenamins.
Yep.
We'll be there at 4.
Yep.
And then at 4:40, we're going to go down the street to Solo, which is door down. And then at 5:10 or 5:15, 5:20, we're going to go to Streamliner. And then at 6 o'clock, hopefully we'll all go over to
We'll crawl.
over to the Gates Foundation with purple pinky nails. Because anyone who donates even $1, no minimum, get a purple nail polish. Represent the purple dipping of the finger of the children get that.
For the polio.
And so then we'll go down there and make the presentation of how much money we've collected. Thank you to Jerry, who's already started the pot.
Excellent.
And so we're on our way to break.
Excellent. And thank you, Howard and Aaron and everybody who's been helping to coordinate this. Just quick show of hands who plans on participating in that. I'll be there. Sounds like fun. So if, like Howard said, if you cannot make it to the event, please see Howard, contribute whatever you can to the cause, because it will go, we'll make sure that it goes to the polio.
Credit cards and mortgage.
Yes, we'll take money in many forms. So that's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to that. So that's a week from Thursday. Meet at McMenamins at 4 o'clock, and I'll send out another announcement out about that.
like Howard mentioned earlier, dictionary distribution is happening October 29th. Thank you, Carol, for helping coordinate all of that. Any words about the dictionary distribution? Just show up at Hawthorne, is that the?
Yeah, and I guess we can, the best thing to do is carpool because parking is,
Right.
yeah.
So we could
Or, yeah, or
just go
Uber
from
over
here.
or whatever, yeah. Even from here, and I think 9:30 that we're going to start giving out the book. So we're there by about 9:15-ish or so. Then
And then keep in mind, this year is different. We're going to be doing second graders.
Okay.
For Carol's recommendation.
Okay, good.
Instead of third graders, so they'll be ready when they go to, they'll be the smartest third graders.
That's right. Very good. And then holiday parties coming up December 3rd. So that's coming up right around the corner, and coordinating that is our very own Matt Story. And I believe that there's going to be a quick committee meeting, planning meeting right after today's meeting. So stick around for a little bit and we will continue planning for that event. So with that, we will move forward with our main program speaker. A quick story about Angela. So what happened when we found Angela, I believe, was Howard read about her in the Puget Sound Business Journal. Is that correct? And he sent a note around to some of the officers of the club and said something like, wouldn't it be great if she spoke to our club? And I thought, yeah, well, that would be great. And so I found Angela on LinkedIn and I connected with her and sent her a quick note on LinkedIn and said, would you mind speaking to our club someday? And she got back to me right away and said, of course, yeah, sure, and helped arrange it. And so we're really happy that Howard found Angela and that Angela agreed to come speak to us about Washington STEM. Angela brings nearly 30 years of leadership experience in the education sector. For the last 15 years, she has served in higher education at both Washington State University and Eastern Washington University. Prior to that, she served 7 years in K-12 public education as the Director of Human Resources and Reconciliation Services for Spokane Public Schools. She holds a Juris Doctor from Gonzaga University Law School of Law, a Master of Science in Communication Studies from Eastern Washington University, and a Bachelor of Liberal Arts degree with an English Language Arts teaching emphasis from Washington State. She's been all over Washington. So please help me welcome Angela Jones. We'll get this picked up.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So as a former teacher, I'm not going to be able to stand behind that podium. I will say that he was the first person to reach out to me and ask me to speak. And so I want to thank you for my first invitation. I have never been a CEO before, so it's been kind of fun the last 2 months. I have gotten so much out of spending just 30 minutes with all of you and the warmth and the true care you have for the community and the globe comes out. And I want to talk to you about how that relates to STEM. I will make the connection. But I want to introduce you to this kid. So she left Snohomish County 30 years ago and went away to college and got all those degrees that you heard about. And she was very idealistic. She didn't know what to do with her hair back then either. I'm very idealistic, and I've come back 30 years later, still idealistic, still very hopeful, and excited to be back in my home community. I'm a Mount Lake Terrace High School graduate, and I actually wanted to share with that same Puget Sound Business Journal article that Howard found, the Mount Lake Terrace High School student newspaper also reached out to the Puget Sound Business Journal. Puget Sound Business Journal said, hey, would you mind talking to some kids? I'm like, are you kidding? They're the whole reason I do what I do. So I actually went up and got interviewed by my high school newspaper, which was really cool. And the two reporters happened to be two young ladies who are in the STEM Academy at Mount Lake.
Wow.
And so I reached out to them on their first week of school and said, I hope you had a great first week, because they had mentioned how they were typically the only 2 young ladies in STEM classes in their academy. And that was a challenge for them. They were trying to get other women to, young girls there to get interested in it. So I'd reached out just to try to keep the fire burning. And one of the students who actually has some visual impairment said, we need more adults with passion, enthusiasm, and drive. Before talking to you, I had given up on getting involved with STEM-related classes. But something you told us about how the things that most consider challenges just drove you further is exactly how I am. Not being able to contribute in that world of STEM and be in those classes that has always bothered me, because I'm never one to back down from challenges. I've rekindled my determination to find a way. STEM and everything else is for everyone, especially when the world tells you it isn't. So I read that to you because I love your mission statement around, the future being our youth and taking care of their educational needs. I love the fact that you are in our schools. That is what it's going to take to move the needle. My team always sends me with a slide deck that I never use. So let's see what they wanted me to say to you, and I will tie it all together. My title is CEO of Washington STEM. I've been in the role just over 2 months. But really, the reason I took the position, I always tell people I am a failed STEM student. That student you saw on the cover left here to go to Washington State University and be a microbiologist. That student took chemistry and college chemistry, and that student did not mix. I couldn't get through my chemistry series. It is the only thing I've ever given up on. And so I took this role because I know what it feels like, and I didn't have the supports back then that exist now when people are trying to help students understand that STEM isn't necessarily just for engineers and computer scientists. We use it in everyday life. The camera Mark's taking a picture on. In everything we do in some way, shape, or form. I share with people, the lipstick I'm wearing was made by chemists. It isn't everything. The reason the lights are on. And so really what Washington STEM is doing is going out across the state. We're focused on the state of Washington right now. And we are helping communities understand what their assets currently are in the labor workforce and to get the labor workforce where we need it to be and where our gaps are. And so I want to talk to you about some of those gaps. So we are focused on the fact that our students are not necessarily getting a bulk of our jobs in Washington. And so because of our economy, when you look at the agriculture industry, when you look at the tech industry, which are still 2 of the biggest in the state, our students are not necessarily going after the education, getting the skill set to be able to compete. So we import a lot of our labor workforce in those key areas. And for those, if you haven't been to Eastern Washington in a long time, the combines now look like computers on wheels. Everything, technology has come into everything. How wheat farmers breathe. They do a lot of sciences around yield, around pesticides, around water resources. And so there's scientists playing in all that. So they're needing students who have that critical thinking, that ability to create solutions out of seemingly nothing. And so what we're finding is, as we look at the labor workforce, looking out to 2030, about 70% of the jobs will require some type of education beyond high school. What we're also looking at, so we look at data all day long, and we help communities understand their data. Our students in the state of Washington are the bottom 5 in the country of students who want after high school to either get an apprenticeship, a 2-year degree, some kind of technical degree, or a 4-year degree. So out of 50 states, we're in the bottom 5, even though we have a rich education system. We have one of the best 2-year systems in the country, literally one of the best. But sometimes when your economy is a little bit better, students can find a job. We have a healthy minimum wage. And so what we're trying to help communities and students understand is those are great places to start, because all of us need people who are willing to work at minimum wage. But we want them to also think about, what's your pathway to growth? If you want to have a family later on, if you want to buy a home, if you want to get a car, if you want to run a business, if you want a leadership position, what are the educational and the skill sets that you need to do it? And so these are the types of data that people keep coming to us and saying, we have a pipeline issue, we have a pipeline issue. And I'll say, well, tell me about it. How do you know you have an issue? Well, they can't answer the question. So when I get 300 engineers at a conference who say, Angela, we have a pipeline issue for engineering. Okay, what's the issue? Well, yeah, they're not coming in, but why? So we always look at the why with people. Like, here's your data. For example, Spokane does not have an engineering pipeline issue. They are producing a ton of engineers between all the institutions. There are 6 institutions of higher education in Spokane alone. So there's not an issue. You come over to the UW, so we had about 5,000 vacancies in engineering in the state of Washington last year. We only produced about 1,800 engineers in this state. 1,000 of those came from the University of Washington. They don't have the capacity to do any more. How do we help others do more? So these are the kinds of things we grapple with, communities and industry. Right now, for the jobs that we know will provide family-sustaining wages, only about 40% of our students are on track to earn credentials by 2030. The youth that we focus on right now, because that's where we're seeing the gaps, youth in rural communities. So, for example, we have some youth doing some amazing STEM things. They don't have broadband. So they're having to try to park next to the school to do some of their homework, or they'll park next to the fast food restaurant or coffee house that might have it. And so how do we deal with that? 9%, it's only 9% of the state, but when you look at where that 9% is, the equity challenge is there around students in rural communities who their school districts also don't have the type of resources that a Spokane, Tacoma, or Seattle would have. So that's one of the areas we focus on. Young women in STEM. Right now, only about 20% of the STEM workforce is female, even though about half of our country's population is female. And so trying to get women interested, one of the things we find is women come into science interested in trying to solve community issues or global issues, social scientist issues. What we find is young men come in trying to solve the structural issue. And so how do we create teams that understand the importance of both? Right now, you all have created a team that has understood the importance of both heart and mind. How do we do that in some of our sectors? Our goal for 2030, we look at the age of 26 as we look at college going rate. That's about the time. If we don't get them by 26, they're typically not necessarily going to come back and be willing to try school. Maybe they're so entrenched in whatever pathway they've created for themselves that they're not coming back. So we're trying to make that turn before 26. Also, low-income students, and you all know this, which is why you've done so many things already to help families who don't have the capabilities or understand the system. Students of color, as well as young women. If we triple students in rural communities, students of color, young women, and students in low-income households, we'll still only get to 70% of our youth having those credentials. We have to triple it just to get to 70%. So what my team is focused on right now is, I've got about 20 people on my team at Washington STEM. How do we help students when they're in preschool, before they even get to kindergarten, to start to be ready? And so one of our challenges is we can only identify where 59% of our students are going. So there's a chunk of students we have no idea how to find them. Maybe they're at home with grandma. Maybe they're with family friends, but we can't identify them in preschool. So oftentimes they're not getting what a preschool student is able to do, or a Head Start student. So they're already behind when they get to kindergarten with their alphabet and with math. And so we're trying to do some things, and sounds like you all are doing some things as well with that early learning. And with this, we also work with the educators. Can we identify the in-home daycare providers? Can we identify the preschools and the daycares, so we can provide them with resources to help move that piece forward? And it's not like we go to a 3-year-old and say, here, this is STEM, do this project, enjoy it. I mean, it's in everything. It's count the slices of pizza. How many pieces there? Now let's eat it. We can have some fun introducing math into that piece. The other piece that we're doing is around career pathways. So we feel really strongly about having those experiences. Hal mentioned the youth exchanges. We don't have those experiences. I grew up as a dependent of the United States Navy. My dad served for 28 years. And I am so blessed to have been able to travel the entire globe. And I can adapt to many situations because I had to. And so having those types of experiences, on those 5 experiences, absolutely. So how do we have internships? And the challenge for some students is, they may need to have a summer job. So if they come and do an internship for you, is there ability to pay? If they do an internship for you, is it more than grabbing coffee, or are they actually going to experience your work so that they can understand and maybe be interested in coming behind you into that workspace? Career fairs are another piece. And there are some families who just have never understood the pathway to get a student to a 2-year or apprenticeship or a 4-year. How do we provide career fairs? How do we provide support for families? The career pathways is a huge thing. The state just launched Career Connect Washington. So every region in the state is focused on how we create career launch opportunities. These have existed forever. The difference is we are trying to do cross-sector collaboration with community, educators, families, business. Right now we have these incredible silos of success. How do we actually make connections? That's a big part of what I'm doing. So they throw all these great slides and they're like, please explain our 6 key activities. That's super boring to explain. So I'm going to skip it. I pretty much told you how we do certain things. And one thing that I'll add is we also do policy and advocacy, working with the school systems and the legislators to see how can we continue to help improve. And this is a map of where all my teams are located. So I have a network director in 10 regions across the state. They don't report to me. They're my partners. We provide some funding and resources and technical assistance, but they're typically tied to like a chamber or an educational service district or a school district, and we come in as a community supporter. These are just some examples. I loved hearing the dictionary story. I was the student. I love words. I love reading. And I would always, if I didn't know a word, I had a dictionary, and I still have it, that I would, and I know it's outdated, but I still have it. I would look up a word if I didn't know it, and I would check it off. And then I would check for my understanding, and then I would try to use it. My dad was a photojournalist for the United States Navy in the Public Affairs Office. He's very much into words as well. And one day I said to him, trying to use my new word, like, well, Dad, that's just a facade. And he was like, or a facade, honey. That's a facade. And I had never made that mistake again. But I had to learn, right? With that piece of it. So now I carry this around. There's still words I'll stumble onto that I want to make sure I'm using correctly. So I'll look them up. So thank you for doing the dictionary piece. I completely geeked out when I read that you guys were doing that. It's important, and you won't even know the impact you're making necessarily, because a kid's going to think about that incredible dictionary they got when they were in 2nd grade, and they're going to still have it in college when they're stumbling upon something. Because there's something to be said for being able to hold that in your hands and flip through the pages and read it right there. So thank you for that work. So to that end, we partner with a lot of the libraries. And right now we're doing a project that Boeing actually helps support, trying to connect early STEM with early learning in the library. So there are actual people who are just focused on that and how they deal with that through literacy as well, combining literacy and STEM literacy. Career Connect Washington, I talked about already. STEM Like Me is a lot of STEM professionals going out into the school systems and talking with students and helping them to understand, what an engineer does, or a computer scientist, or a data analyst, and sitting down and talking as a human to human, and explaining that it's doable, it's achievable. And the data deep dives, this is where we go into communities. We're actually going to Tacoma tomorrow and meeting with Graduate Tacoma and explaining to them what their data means. There is so much data available. It can get confusing, and it's dangerous if we don't use it correctly. And so we literally sit down with communities and say, this is what your labor workforce looks like 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now. Here are the places, that you may be surprised to know. So in Spokane, of course, I just came from Spokane, so I looked at all that data. While I was working in Spokane, we never would have said, we need more real estate people and appraisers. That is literally what their gap is. It's not engineers, it's not computer scientists, because we have focused so heavily on it, but nobody's going out and saying, hey, you should be an appraiser. I'm in the middle of buying a house, so I really appreciate appraisers right now. But those are the kinds of connections that we make to say, identify the actual issue. Why are they not going on and doing some schooling after high school? Where are they going? what is the labor workforce you actually need in your community? You know, not just one industry or technology, but across your entire community. And how can we help you get there? And then how do we make connection? We have a student continuum from birth to career, but we don't have supports where we're saying, hey, elementary school, let's hand off now to middle school. I'm probably getting ahead of myself. I am. I'm asking communities to stretch with me because I want, you know, for example, with business and industry, I talked to a group last week where I said, you know, when you're going out and you're doing internships, are they valuable experiences that help a student get really excited about maybe pursuing the type of career that you have? The other piece is when you're hiring, what does your hiring process look like? Are you actually weeding out some of the younger professionals because they don't have 10 years of experience? Are you willing to give an opportunity to somebody who may have 0 or may have 1 or 2? Are you willing to train someone up? What are you looking for? So talking with educators and asking them to get outside the box. Right now, you teach English in this period, and then math, and then you teach science. Do you guys work that way in your everyday lives?
I write the first hour,
Right?
my math the second.
But you know, that's not how the real world works. And so I'm actually working with some folks to build a continuum of support to get people to understand how we're going to come together. So how do we connect with you all? You know, you made a connection to the school system. Who's going to continue the care for Hawthorne Elementary that you've given those students when they move on to middle school and when they move on to high school? It's disjointed right now. Okay. So doing that work around that piece. Higher education, I came out of higher education, you know, so many years working as an administrator. I know the growing pains and the challenges of higher education, but I also keep saying to them, we need an interdisciplinary approach to the work. And again, for that same you know, description I gave you is we don't do our work like Joel mentioned, like he's not going to be reading the first hour and then, you know, math the second hour, but we're still teaching them. And are we providing the types of experiences and degrees that students need? Like I love philosophy. How many of you are looking to hire a philosophy major in I love French. You know, how many of you are looking to do that? Right now, there are students who are only going into a French major. They're not augmenting it with something else.
Right.
And so how do we work together? How does higher ed hear us as community, as business, and say, okay, we know you have a bottom line higher education, and we know you're tuition driven, but how do we come together and say, these are the actual workforce issues we need to meet? People forget higher education was created to meet our workforce needs, except for probably Harvard. But the workforce needs originally were for the ministry. That's what a lot of these institutions were created for first. And then teachers, we needed teachers as we started, you know, we were the Wild West, right? And so as we started moving families this way, we needed people who would educate our families. We had that one-room schoolhouse, and they had one teacher who did an interdisciplinary approach. Now, I'm not advocating for going back to the one-room schoolhouse, but for the ability to educate together. And where do we come in to come up with, we hear from employers all the time, your students that you're graduating don't have the soft skills. You know, they can't present. You know, they can't put a report together. They can't problem solve when they disagree, you know, with a teammate. We're not teaching that in higher education either, and we're not teaching that in K-12 necessarily. So how do we take a holistic approach to a student's journey across the birth to career continuum and actually providing the kind of employees and the community citizens we need to continue the work that you all are leading right now? So I've been out asking communities if they would please start. I got the 5-minute sign from Mark about probably 6 minutes ago. So I want to thank you again for your passion. I am not a morning person, but my spirit was so filled in the first half hour, singing the song, doing the Pledge of Allegiance, and hearing what you're doing when you don't actually have to do this. You're committing to do something that's bigger than you. And that's my biggest thing. Washington STEM is what our board created and focused us on, but I can tell you that my team is bigger than that. We're figuring out how we can make sure that every kid has the love they need to be successful. And when I say love, you think about benevolence. How do we make sure we take care of everybody and not just ourselves? I've been incredibly fortunate in my journey. I have a responsibility to help other students understand what they can do. So I'm currently mentoring. Again, I'm going to cut it off there because I could go on forever about this topic. My contact information is up there. Always happy to chat with people and figure out how we can support you as well.
Very good.
Thank you, Angela. We really appreciate you speaking with us this morning. What can Emerald City do to support Washington STEM?
Well, you already are, now that I've been able to hear a snippet of what you're doing, and I was cyber stalking you all on the website as well before I came. And so actually, I am literally creating what I'm going to nerd out on you with the science of a causal model that shows the continuum and what has to happen for every student across the lifespan of their education in order for them to be successful employees. And so I will be reaching out to you because I likely want to use some examples of what you were doing in that model, because every single person in this state has responsibility, even the student. And so I'm trying to illustrate that, and I'm working with some business partners and community partners and students to say, does this model make sense and what's missing? So I will likely be bugging you all about being able to use examples of your work.
Yeah, and you're welcome back anytime. We'd love to have you, folks from your team. That would be perfect. And we did want to recognize you for coming out and speaking with us. Our club is dedicated to the future of our community by serving the educational needs of young people. And so we wanted to donate 300 pounds of food to Harvest Against Hunger in your name, so that families won't go hungry. So
can I tell you a story of why you're going to make me too? So I, lived in Spokane for so long. I was very passionate seeing a homeless population rise, much like we're dealing with here. And so for the last 6 years, I've done a ministry with homeless families in Spokane, and I had to leave that behind. And I don't quite know where my space is here because it's so big. When I drive by the freeways, I'm like, wow. So that, you made me cry. that made my day.
Well, this is for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Thank you very much, Angela. We're really glad that you're here. A couple of final things that we need to get to. I forgot to mention early on that if you're wanting to get involved with the local grants committee, please see Dan Wavy here. He'd be happy to welcome you onto the committee. And those meetings are going to start kicking off pretty soon, I believe. So
shoot me an email or you can shoot Mark an email. He'll get it to me. And I'd like to have who's going to be on the committee set probably by the end of this week. So let me know right away, and we'll start if you want to wrap this up between now and the end of the year.
Yep. So
can you give an example of something that has been done in the past?
local grants.
Yes.
So we obviously have a relationship with SUA, have the ongoing stuff, and we supported them. Our backpack brigade. We did a couple of music programs and music in schools programs over the last couple of years. So.
And code conduct.
Code of Conduct was a new one last year. Yep.
Which is a STEM-related program.
Yep.
All right. So please see Dan. And also, I wanted to mention that have you been getting my newsletters with the photos? So I encourage other people to take photos too. I've been taking photos, but sometimes I'm at a weird angle. So you guys take photos too. Send them to me. And I'll get them into the newsletter, put them up on Instagram. Check out our Instagram site. We've got a whole Instagram page with a ton of photos. Girl?
Just a reminder for everyone, make sure that you sign in.
Yes,
when I
for
record
attendance.
the attendance on DAC-DB, and I look and say, oh, this person was at the meeting, but you didn't check off that you were there, so I want to be real accurate.
Very good.
Because I might not remember.
Right. Yes, definitely do that. And I believe we have a book.
We do. Well, we have 2 books. So, we talked about the dictionaries that we're handing out. And these aren't just dictionaries, these are dictionaries. And they're really beautiful. So I'm going to give you a dictionary. And this is to you, and it says, to Angela, may this dictionary be the gateway to STEM success. The Emerald City Rotary.
Thank you. That is amazing.
That's the one they got.
So next week's speaker, and I don't know if I'm going to pronounce her name correctly, it's Deb Coyle. With Haunted Snohomish Author 8. Snohomish Haunted Author. Yeah, she'll be here next week. And for those who are new to visiting our club, every week we have a raffle. We sell tickets, $1 a piece, 6 for $5. Half the money goes to the club. The other half goes into a progressive pot. So each week, the winner of whoever gets drawn wins a book. This week is Ideas Are Free. Free is a good word. And they also get to choose to pick a card out of the deck. There's only 24 cards here, including the Joker. You choose the Joker, you win $812 this week. Oh my. So if you wouldn't mind putting your hand in there, mixing it around,
Get the ticket.
How's pressuring me?
Yeah.
Pressure, pressure. Okay,
Read the last three
the
numbers.
last three. 073.
Ooh, once again.
Very,
Shuffle.